And we are live.
Perfect.
Hello, Kevin LANGEREE.
Good afternoon.
First of all, thank you so much for being here.
No problem. Thanks for the invite.
I want to apologize to all the French people that didn't have time to practice their English in the weekend, but this live will be in English. Unless you've taken some French lessons recently.
I've done some lessons recently, but it's still very rusty. So I wouldn't wait for that for me to learn
Great.
French.
Great. You asked me not to ask it, but I'm going to ask it anyways. What did you do an hour ago, please?
Yeah, I went kiting. In Holland, we are still allowed to go outside, and we're still allowed to kite. So I'm actually very happy with that. So I just came off the water like an hour and a half ago. And I know you guys, most of the French and the Spanish and the Belgian people are all locked inside. They're not even allowed to go on the streets. And we are still quite lucky here in Holland.
Enjoy it for us.
I will.
Kevin, just a question. Have you heard before about the Projet foilidaire?
No, to be honest, no.
I need to practice more on my communication. I'm starting to be okay in France, but I need to go further. Projet foilidaire, I'm just give you 2 words about it. It's a project that I started 1 year and a half ago, and it's a fundraiser. I started kite foiling. I practice kite surf since 10 years, and I started kite foiling 1 year and a half ago. And I told myself that there were guys that were running marathons to raise funds, and why not do the same with kite surfing? And
Exactly.
I raised a bit more than 5,000 euros last year, and this year is still going great, even with the situation. And yeah, very, very nice project, and I was really happy to discover competition. Kevin,
Well done.
can you please tell us how did it all start? I mean, kite surfing.
How did it all started? Well, I was always flying kites on the beach since I was 7 years old, and I was basically fascinated by flying. I think one of my first dreams I can still remember is that I was able to fly, and then the first connection with that was flying a kite on the beach. And even though I wasn't getting any air yet, it felt like that was something that was very suited to me. And then when I was 9 years old, I also started surfing. And then when I was 11 years old, I saw the combination between flying a kite on the beach and surfing, because that was kite surfing. And when I saw that for the first time, I knew it right away. I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. And that's how I basically started back in 2000. So yeah, 20 years ago.
And how did it start to get, let's say, serious?
Well, I'm a very competitive kind of guy. It's always been in my DNA, pretty much. Any sport I did before I started kiting, I always wanted to compete and do my best. Then when I started kiting, I felt like, hey, this is something I could compete as well in. And I started competing for the first time on like a national level back in 2003 at the Dutch Championships. And then I managed to win against all the older guys, and I was only 12 years old. And I was like, okay, wow, that's cool. And then the next year I competed again and then won again. And I was like, okay, next step is compete with the real big boys. And the real big boys were on the PKRA on the World Tour.
What were the names at that time?
Back in the day when I started was Mark Shin, Julian Sudrat, and then Martin Vari. Those were the heroes back then.
Okay, never heard of him. But
No?
no. Okay, and I guess you've got a pretty strong relation with Naish. How did it start, and how did it go for all those years? Because it's been like what, more than 10 years together?
No, 20 years.
With Naish?
Yeah, I was with Naish for 20 years. Yeah, and I had a great time with them. We grew together towards where we are. At this very moment, and it was. I had a great support from them. They've helped me, and I've helped them with growing their brand, and they've helped me grow my career. And I'm really looking back at a fantastic time, and but it was time for change, though.
We'll talk about that later. But how did it start?
Well, I met Robbie on the beach back in 2001 in Holland, and during a World Cup, and then the ball started rolling. They saw this little kid of 11 years old, jumping, and and then I got a sponsorship, but first through the importer here in Holland, and then eventually I got better, and then moved into the international team.
Great. And how do you did you ever study something besides your tricks?
Like school-wise?
Yeah. Or you left that aside right away, and you said, I want to be a pro kiteboarder.
Well, I had I did my school. I did my high school, but then after high school, like during my whole high school period, I was already competing on the world tour.
Okay.
And I was building, I knew I had to get that paper just to have it. But afterwards I knew, like, hey, I have a huge opportunity to go this way and to follow my passion and follow my pretty much my instinct. And luckily my parents supported that, and they were like, yeah, of course, go what you love to do, because, if you do something you love to do, you become good at it. And I just went full on committed into becoming a professional kiteboarder, and and it worked out. But it definitely took a lot of time and dedication, and it took some risk as well, because I didn't study, and then there's always always a chance that you might fail at something. But knowing that if you fail for me, like to fail at becoming a professional kiteboarder, that was not an option for me. So I did everything in my ability. I put every hour I have, and I still do. I have every hour I have, I put it into kiting, and I try to do it as good as I can.
But what's maybe not your advice or your, I guess that a lot of people that are going to see this video, maybe not a lot, but some would dream of your life. Maybe all we see is your vlogs and the champagne after the competition. Can you tell us more about what's difficult, the struggles, the risks, and so on?
Well, it's not easy it's a lot of fun, of course. First of all, being a professional athlete and making from something you love to do the most and making a living out of that is like a dream come true. But on the other side, it's not easy to stay motivated for such a long time. It's pretty much, if you, let's say you eat your favorite food every day, at one point it's not going to be your favorite food anymore.
Okay.
So you've got to find that right balance where you keep on triggering yourself and keep on motivating yourself, but you don't burn yourself out. And I've had times where I was doing too much of what I love doing, and I started losing interest. I started losing motivation, and I started to realize, hey, you got to appreciate what you have. And if you don't enjoy something anymore, try to change it, make steps, and try to go into a different direction where you start loving it, again.
And you're just talking about the recent transitions, or it happened several times in your career?
Oh, I've had a couple times in my career where I wouldn't say burned out, but pretty close to. It's quite intense. It's of course a lot of fun traveling around the world and competing, but it was quite intense as well. We did back in the day, I was doing, I was traveling 250, 260 days a year from the one competition into the other, trying to be focused the whole year around, and being gone from home a lot and not seeing your friends at home very often. Of course, you have a lot of friends on the road, but
is that the hardest part? Family and close friends?
Sorry?
Is that the hardest part? Leaving the family?
No, that wasn't the hardest part. It's just sometimes I find the hardest part to keep yourself motivated and keep on doing new things. Because for me, what works really well is do new things, trigger myself, take risks in either learning a new trick, and now in this case, starting my own brand. And that keeps me on top of my game. It keeps me very excited to be kiting as much as possible. And I feel like there's always little things you can find to keep on motivating yourself. And sometimes it's big steps. Sometimes it's just these little things, trying a new kite or trying a new trick, and then once you get it, you're motivated to go to that next step. And then, it's, that's one of the most important things for me as a professional athlete, to keep that motivation and drive to progress.
And do you think you have something special that led you there? I mean, I asked the question to Alex Kezerk, the fastest man on kitesurf, about his physical condition or something that he had, and he answered that he was just like, okay, he had strong legs, but then it was practice. Yeah. Do you think it's the same for you?
Yeah, I'm gonna give that same answer probably. It's a lot of, it's not like you wake up one morning and you have a certain skill, you got to put a lot of time in it. You got to put a lot of effort into it. And then, you can become good at something, but it's not like you can get an advice from someone or, wake up this one morning and you have all these skills. That doesn't really exist.
And what is your, I guess you spend a lot of time kiting, but you've got we can see it on the videos, you've got an amazing physical condition. You work out a lot?
Yeah, I love doing sports. I'm a very active kind of guy, so I can't sit still very well. So I try to do sports multiple times a day. My favorite sport is, of course, kiting, but then I surf as well. I stand-up paddle, I foil, I mountain bike, I do CrossFit, I run once in a while, and I definitely like to be active.
How did you come to create a YouTube channel?
For me, it pretty much started as a joke. I started it 4 years ago, and it was sort of the end of the season, and I was at home browsing the internet, and I came on. I got stuck on YouTube, and then I got I followed a couple. Of course, I heard about vlogs, but then I was like, I don't know what are these guys really doing? So I started investigating it, and then I came across a couple of vloggers, and I got stuck on watching those vlogs for more than an hour, and I was like, wow, that's crazy. And then I thought back, I was like, hey, what are these guys actually? What are they doing? And some guys were doing cool stuff, but most of the guys weren't really doing anything, but they were just telling a cool story, and they were bringing you, they were showing a little part of their life that was interesting. And then I grabbed my camera. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna give this thing a go as well, just as a joke. And I started doing it, and then the ball started rolling.
And you learned how to edit by yourself, and for the first time there, or you already had done some videos?
Yeah, I did some videos in the past, so I knew how to edit a little bit, but very basic.
Okay.
I'm definitely not a editor or professional filmmaker, that's for sure. But no, I just kept on. I just filmed it, edited, and then the more you do it, the better you get into it. The better you get into it, and of course, if I want to learn new stuff, I just go on YouTube, and there's a lot of tutorials there to how to edit or how to film or how to use the perfect settings. And I just taught myself pretty much.
What do you know? What's your favorite video on your channel?
What's my favorite one?
Yeah, the one you like the most. Is there one?
I think the one that I kited in Holland through all these little channels. I think I watched that one back the other day, and it cracked me up. That was definitely a fun one. And those big jumps in Cape Town are always fun to watch back, and especially the ones riding with friends. I always love doing, and then love watching them back as well after a while.
I guess you remember the video. It was what? 2 up, 1 down, or something like that.
Yeah.
Whose idea was it?
That was Nick and Yuri's and my idea. We were in South Africa and we were sitting having a coffee, and then the one day we were like, oh, we gotta try this, tie a rope to the one guy in kites, and then we use one kite and then we use 2 riders, and then we tried that the one day. The next morning we went to have coffee again, and we're like, okay, what's the next step? Maybe we should go with 1 kite and 3 riders. Two kites
and 3 riders.
2 kites and 3 riders. And then we just drew on a little paper like, oh, we got to do it like this. And then, with the creativity of us 3, I think, we came to the idea to do it. And man, it was a lot of fun.
And it worked pretty well. It's incredible to see that it seems just possible. Do you recommend anyone to try that at home? No,
I wouldn't recommend that. No, that's definitely dangerous.
Can you give us your tips to jump higher? What are the tips of Kevin for let's say the average guy that has already started jumping to jump higher?
Well, one of the most important thing is your posture. How do you stand on the water? And first of all, you have to have an active stance. So to get an active stance, you gotta make sure you have a strong core. So now when you're not allowed to go in the water, definitely do as many core exercises as you can. And I'm sure you can find tons of them on YouTube. But the stronger your core is, the better position you can have while riding. And then of course, it helps when the wind is a bit stronger. Then get a good pop. And what a lot of people do with a pop is they sort of pop well, but they don't pop hard enough. Like, you gotta really dig that back heel into the board, put the board like super vertical into the water, and shoot your board upwind. At the same time, put pressure on your core, lean back. And before you start doing that, steer your kite first, of course. And then get that timing right, where you start edging, steer the kite, and that's, it takes time. That stuff takes a lot of time to perfect that timing. And the better you get that timing and the better feeling you get for it, the higher you will eventually go.
And speaking of height, I remember seeing Ruben Lenten sending some kite loops or mega loops, and everyone was like, wow, amazing.
Yeah.
And it's not my case, but right now I have the feeling that everyone does that. Not everyone, but you see what I mean. How do you explain that the kites have so much evolved that it's easier for everyone to do the same?
Yeah, of course, the kites have evolved like crazy over the last couple of years. It's, we saw a huge, I think, change in the King of the Air during the 2018 season, where you saw like a lot of guys, or 2017, 2018, where you saw a lot of guys still on, or a couple guys still on the C-shaped kite, move towards like a more bow-shaped kite. And you see now that everyone, like if you ride a C kite in the King of the Air, you're never going to get that same height as on the bow kite. So that whole evolution of the kites and the height we're getting nowadays, like for example, if you look back at the King of the Air from like 6-7 years ago, we thought back then we were jumping big. But if you look at it now, you know, there's guys jumping almost twice as big as we're going now, or that we went back
at the time.
And it's crazy to see how quick that goes. Every season, it seems like the average goes up by like 3, 4, 5 meters. So
But
I'm sure
it's only the gear.
Well, it's the gear, it's the technique, it's a couple of things, of course. It's a bit of luck. Maybe some guys have the massive jump and they just have that. They manage to hit that kicker just perfect, get that perfect gust, and it shoots you up there. So it's a combination. It's not just one thing, of course. It's a combination of multiple.
Yeah. Can you tell us a bit about the recent transition? How did it start? Since how long are you working on the new brand? Why didn't you tell me anything?
What's that?
Why didn't you tell me anything? Are you keeping me some secrets or what? No. But when did it start? Maybe the first ideas, and how did the transition go?
Well, I've had the idea for quite a long time already, but you know, I've a lot of ideas that I have for a long time. But to actually really make a step and actually go for it, especially such a big step from, you know, being with a sponsor for 20 years to starting your own brand. It's not like it's definitely not an easy step, and it's definitely not a step without any risk. But I felt like, you know, I'm really a guy that loves pushing it, pushing myself forward, not only on the water, but also off the water. And I just you know, love that feeling on setting a new goal for myself. And I was at a point in my career now where I felt like I had achieved a lot of things, and then like now the next step for me was to start my own brand with Damien, and that's what I did.
And first question, so you said that when you started your YouTube channel, you started like a joke. Are you realizing that it's super important to have done that to launch a brand today?
Well, yeah, it's been a great move, you know, especially you know, starting that YouTube channel and creating an audience for myself that I could use now while launching the brand. It's a perfect platform that I've created to you know, to showcase our gear.
And so there was no idea behind that at the beginning, but now you're just saying that it's.
Well, I always knew like. You know, there's going to be a point, because still now I invest a lot of time in it, and I don't like directly. You don't make that much money out of it. You get a little bit of money from YouTube, but that's if you count your hours.
Yeah, it's nothing.
Towards what you get paid, it's like you make like 50 cents an hour. You know, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But then on the other hand, I have an audience now which does have value, so you do make a little money.
Yeah.
And that's great now.
And I can testify about that, because I'm a really average rider, but because of all the communication that I've put, I get good sponsors for the project and so on. So it's and how do you go seeing Naish and saying, well, it's over, thank you for the 20 years?
Yeah, it was
must be something
hard, of course, you know. It was hard, but you know, it was time to move on. And you know, I had a great time there, like I said before, and he understood as well. You know, you got to move on at one point. And we went, you know, we said thank you to each other, and we move on.
And Damien is the former kite designer at Naish, right?
Yeah.
And so there was no major issue with that either. That you just told him, or I don't know if you told him, but basically we have a project together and we need to move on.
Yeah, well, Damien, he quit. He quit a couple months before me already. So he was, yeah, like for him as well. He was ready to move on and do something else. And yeah, we met. Well, we knew each other already. So yeah, we became partners and started this adventure.
And I guess you've worked together with Damien in the kite development for Naish, right?
Yeah. Okay, yeah, so, for sure. Yeah.
What do you think of the current kite market? My feeling, but it's really personal and it's based on really no figures, is that there is too much brands for the amount of kiters out there.
Yes and no. It's hard to say. It's I think the beauty of our sport is that it's very diverse. You have, first of all, you have the racing, you have the freestyle, you have the wave, you have people just cruising up and down, and then there's a couple, big brands that support all these things, and then you have little brands that support maybe very specific disciplines. And I think that's the beauty of the sport, and I agree, you don't want to have 1,000 brands because that would devaluate the sport. But I don't feel like there's too much brands now. But I think it gives the consumer the possibility to choose whatever what suits them best.
Right. We are going to switch to questions and answers. So I've already collected quite a few, but if you guys listening you want to ask more questions, please feel free. The first question is asked by Willy, and he wanted to know if you are going to keep just one kite in your range, and in the short term and middle term.
Yeah, well, in the beginning, our vision now at this very moment is we want to build our brand first, and we wanted to make a kite that suits like 90% of the kiter. So we made a kite that's very easy, that's very stable, that you can basically, give a beginner, you can give it in their hand and they're able to ride away. But also a kite that, for me, kiting in the King of the Air is suitable. And that was our mission in the beginning, and I think we really, really achieved that mission. We made a kite. The supermodel is just an easy kite that you can also ride in the waves, and we're very happy on it. And especially that easy part, I think that's super important, because, for example, if you're a beginner rider, you ride up and down, and there is a lot of stuff happening already. There's waves, there's other kiters that you need to pay attention to, and then you want to have a kite that just does what you want it to do. You don't want to have a kite that's everywhere, because then it will be another thing where you need to pay attention to. And but also for guys that are riding a higher level, they want a kite to rely on. If they do a jump, they want to know exactly where that thing is. They want to know, they want to trust that it's going to catch, that the kite is going to catch you when you come down, for example, from a kite loop. So, and I feel like we really achieved that goal. So I'm very happy on that.
I remember you talking about you switching to the pivot from the torch, I guess, and you had the same discussion. So what are you pushing forward with Reedin?
What do you mean?
I mean that if you compare the supermodel with the pivot, let's say, what sort of no compromise have you made to I don't know, push it even further, like differentiate from that specific model that you made become very famous?
Well, of course, we started the supermodel from scratch again. You know, we made the blueprint from scratch again. So we built up the kite together with Damien. We built it up from scratch. We started, you know, we made the whole new profile. We made the new wingtips. We made new bridles to achieve that, you know, to even push that easiness even further. And that was our main goal, but not compromising performance, even for the riders with a little bit more, with a little bit of a higher level. And that's something we focused on. And of course, with Damien's knowledge and his expertise, he was able to, you know, to nail it. You know, the first prototypes I've flown, I was like, whoa, you know, we're, you know, definitely on the right track. And then we, you know, adjust a couple of things to really fine tune it to where it is now.
And do you have some perspectives to go into foiling?
We won't go into. I don't think we will go into race foiling.
Yeah.
But eventually, like, I love foiling myself. Damien loves foiling himself as well. So yeah, we're definitely in the future. I'm sure we're gonna do something with foiling, but
because I've got here a prototype that I've made myself.
Nice.
And if you want, we can team up and do something.
Who knows, man? Who knows?
But okay, so not in the near future, but maybe in your plans.
Who knows? Yeah. It's definitely in the. But yeah, like again, it's not going to happen this season. Maybe not next season. First, we want to, you know, like I said before, we first want to build our brand, which is a lot of work already because we're in a very small team. It's Damien and I, and then we have a couple of people around helping us out as well on the logistics side and the website and design side and the sales. But yeah, again, we want to build a solid foundation first, get rolling, and then we will explore a little bit further, like in foils and maybe a different kite. So that's our goal.
Great. I've got a very good question from Raphael. Don't you think that pro riders should be riding on prototypes? How do you explain that they've got the same kites as beginner kites? Or average kiters? So somehow I find it nice because everyone can ride with the same gear as the pros, but doesn't at your level specific equipment can it make a difference or not so much?
Well, it depends what discipline you do. I would say you know, maybe the racing guys, they're so fine tuned, like the foils, they're so fine tuned that an average Joe can barely ride that foil because it's so you know, fine tuned.
Yeah.
I feel like riding on a twin tip, you want the basic of a kite and a gear is very, like, in my opinion, is very, very important. So the basics of the kite need to be, first of all, stable. It needs to react good. You need to know where it is, and it doesn't need to do weird things. And those things are very important for a guy that is starting kiting, but it's also important for me when I compete in the King of the Air. Like I mentioned before, when you do a crazy kite loop and I'm upside down, you know, with my board off, I want to know that, like, when I come down with, you know, 70 or 80 kilometers an hour, I want to trust that kite that it's going to catch me and that it's easy to control. So I can focus completely on my rotation and getting my board off and everything. So it's a very good question, but I feel like that easiness, what I say, it works as well for a beginner kind of guy, or like the average kiter, but also those things also work for the high level guys in the discipline I do.
Great. Are you planning to have some kind of a team with the Reed riders?
At Reedin? For sure.
And because the questions, so I have no clue about the community that's asking those questions, but is there some kind of program that people can enter in or apply to?
There is not yet we are definitely working on an opinion leader program that we're building now, and then eventually from there we want to build a international team as well. But like I said before, we're still as a fairly small company, and we're still building our foundation.
Yes.
And the next step would be to have a pro guys joining our team. But I want to first build a brand, get a solid, healthy company before we start sponsoring people, and then
of course.
Spending spending money that we maybe don't even have. So we got to be smart. We have to go slow, but eventually we'll get there, I'm sure.
Great. What's your opinion on wing foiling?
Oh, I think it's a great tool to be on the water even more, and be on the water with even a different feeling. And I don't do it that often myself, to be honest, but it brings people to the water. So I think all these, whatever it is, whether it is stand-up paddling or foiling or supping or whatever it is, as long as you can be on the water, I think it's good.
Great. Then there was this question of Maxime. How often do you kite? And what's the balance between having fun and really working on it?
I try to kite, of course, as much as I can, and it depends on the location I'm at. Like, I'm in Holland at the moment where I live, and we get quite a lot of wind. But for example, when I'm in the winter, when I'm based in South Africa, I kite almost every single day. And it very much depends on what if I train for the big air. Like, big air is very risky, and the chance of getting injured is quite big. So, from my experience, I only really learn new stuff if everything clicks. Like, if I feel good, if I feel confident, my gear is spot on, then that's the moment when I learn new tricks. If something is a little bit off, I don't do it, because then I know, okay, if that little thing is off, I'm gonna hurt myself.
Okay.
And that's sometimes a hard balance, because you want to learn new stuff, but then you're not in that right mood or whatever. Then I've learned to just hold back,
because otherwise you pay it with months of recovery and
and that's there's always a risk, of course, but you want to decrease that risk as much as you can.
Of course. Have you heard about the Defi Kite?
Yeah.
Why haven't we seen you there yet?
I've been there once, but
really?
That's when was that? I think it's like 6 years ago, maybe. And I was actually supposed to go this year, but I think it's gonna be cancelled, right?
Yeah, it has been cancelled. Yeah.
Should I switch on some lights? Is that better?
Yeah, it's perfect. So you were going to participate there?
Yeah, I was gonna go. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So we'll see there next year.
For sure, I'll be there.
You are a great. Thomas Darcourt asks, you are a great competitor, but as many other pro kite surfers, you don't use the Vous anymore. I don't know if it's true or not. Is it because it's unofficial, or because it's not your way of seeing kiteboarding?
Oh no, I love the tool. I think it's a fantastic tool to have as a kiteboarder. I think it brings really people together, and there's a little bit of a competition thing there. If you're a bunch of friends, you can have that little competition going. I don't really use it that often, because I just want to feel it myself. I don't always want to measure everything. Stuff. Sometimes it's very cool to measure stuff, but I feel like I want to be in the moment. I don't need numbers to show me I had a good session or not. But that's very personal. But maybe I should start using it a bit more often.
Okay. Maxime wants to know if you still do kite coachings.
I do it sometimes. Yeah, I always run a clinic in Dominican Republic in Cabaretta, and then I do a couple clinics here and there. But I never. Yeah, that's basically what I do. But I don't do it that often.
Thomas wants to know if you're still learning new tricks. I guess yes. Which ones?
Yep.
Which ones?
Well, I've been for the King of the Air. I've been trying to do, kite loop board offs with a rotation and stuff. Those were the latest stuff I wanted to, I'm working on, and now it's hard to train them because it's not windy that strong windy that often here in Holland, so it's hard to train. But that's why I try to spend as much time as possible in South Africa, and but even those small things, like I went out foiling today, and there's always little tricks or things you can learn, even riding a foil.
I'm sorry, I was listening to you, but I've got all the questions coming. Thanks a lot. Is it somehow? Do you feel like being a celebrity in the kitesurf world, something that can be boring sometimes, like having guys like me who just passed 1,500 subscribers that ask you to come for a video?
No, well, I think it's great. It feels like a compliment on my work I do, and I love it to hear that people like what I do and they follow me and they watch my videos I make. It makes me really motivated as well, because could you imagine if no one was watching it? I would stop doing it. So definitely, it's good it's very motivating to read all the comments and the response I get on the stuff I do. So definitely keep on doing that, because it motivates me.
Great.
to improving and keep doing new things.
Let's get back to Reedin. I've got 2 more questions. And if there are some news showing up in the comments, please ask them. Can you tell us some words about the board that's just behind your back?
Yeah, this is the Kev Pro. So we have 2 twin tips. We have the Kev Pro and the Super E, and the Kev Pro is the board for a little bit more the high performance kiter. So the kiter that wants to ride a little bit faster, wants to get a little bit more response out of the board. The response you're getting from the carbon that's inside. We have a wood core with a carbon to get that stiffness into the board. And then we have the Super E. The Super E is pretty much the same shape. Comes in different sizes, but it's a little bit softer. So it's basically for the rider that rides a little bit slower and wants a little bit more comfort in the board. Okay. So I feel like with the Kev Pro and the Super E, we cover a very wide range of riders.
Is your brand available in the USA? Someone asks.
Yep, it is.
Because I guess that if the question was asked, the person didn't know. How do you get some kites there?
We could send them.
So I guess order them on the website.
On reedinkites.com.
Very very nice question from Lauriane. Can you give us some words about Angélie Bouillot this year at the King of the Air and the place of women in that sport?
Oh man, she rips, eh?
She will be live very soon.
Cool. Say hi to her.
She's lost somewhere, so it's always 3 or 4 days between every one of our message. But I guess I'll manage. But
now, deep respect for her, like especially for the women kiting. There's a couple girls around the world, like in my opinion, like my sister Angélie, Bruna, and those girls, and Gisela Pulido, for example, those girls really stepped it up, and and seeing Anjali in the King of the Air this year competing, and I saw her do one of the biggest kite loops I've ever seen a girl do, and I definitely want to see her compete next year. It's
Great.
Definitely have her what she does.
Speaking of your sister, is it a choice that she stays with North, or are you planning to onboard her?
Well, of course, I want to have her on my team, but it's her own choice. She just signed with North a year ago, so she's very happy over there. But who knows what the future will bring?
Very good question from Mark. Does the launch of the new brand is going to have an impact on your performance and your trainings? Because I guess
so. It will have an effect, a positive effect.
Really?
Now the beauty now is that Damien and I can pretty much decide what we want to do. Where we can make gear that we want to ride. And that's the beauty.
But I guess the question is more about the spare time you have, because if you launch your brand, I guess you spend a lot of time communicating, shipping things, organizing everything, building the brand, just like you said, and it's time that you cannot put into riding.
Yeah, it definitely it takes a lot of time, but luckily, like I said before, we have a team around us. We have a really good, Damien as a designer and of the products, and then we have a logistic company that takes care of all the shipment, and then we have 2 salespeople that do all the sales for us, and then we have a marketing and activation guy that does all the website and make sure that if you click on the website that everything works and that your package gets sent. So we do have a team around us already, because otherwise it would be impossible to do it, for example, just with Damien and myself. Then you would definitely never ever be able to ride anymore. But now, we found a very good balance where, I do my stuff on the computer, I do my work on Reedin, and then I still have a lot of time that I, of course, spend in training and getting ready for competitions and stuff.
And you still travel a lot, or you're more in Holland right now?
Yeah, at the moment I'm just traveling in my own house. I'm going from the living room to my bedroom and then to the beach. So yeah, my travel distance isn't as far as usual. But I'm still, once everything goes back to normal, I will hopefully be traveling soon again. But no one really knows what will be going on. So just take it day by day and stay positive and just see what happens.
Thomas has got a very good question. Do you think that big air competition tour would be something meaningful? Because today, correct me if I'm wrong, there is only 2. It's the King of the Air and the Mega Loop Challenge.
Yeah.
Do you think there would be place for more of that and other spots?
Oh, I think there's definitely place for it. Just the only hard thing with big air is you need very strong wind to run the competition. To run a competition like a big air competition in 20 knots, it's pretty lame.
Okay.
So that's something that's very hard with the big air. And the beauty with, for example, the King of the Air and the Mega Loop Challenge is that with the King of the Air, we have almost 3 weeks of waiting period. For the Mega Loop, we have a couple months waiting period. Okay. And then we get a 48-hour notice. So there is definitely a possibility to do a tour, but then you need to use that format where you say, for example, we pick Tarifa for 2 months.
Okay.
Or 3 months.
Okay.
And when we see the wind is good, 48 hours before, we go for it. And I feel like that's maybe the only that's probably the only way it would work in my eye.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Is there something that you wanted to share with everyone right now?
Yeah, I want to wish everyone all the best and hang in there. I know these times are very hard and we're all having our own little struggles here and there.
Yes.
And I'm sure everyone has his ups and definitely has his downs. Maybe multiple times a day, but try to keep your head up. And I'm sure once you can do that first session again, it's gonna feel so flipping good. So yeah, I would highly recommend just to think about, use that kiting as a sort of motivation to pull yourself through these crazy times. And hopefully this will be done soon.
Great. Thanks everybody. Thanks so much, Kevin. Tomorrow it will be another Reedin show. I'm going to change the name of the channel, the Reedin French channel. We'll have Damien to go a bit deeper into kite design. So it's really great. I guess he speaks French, right?
Yeah, he speaks pretty good French. He did the course a couple years ago.
Perfect.
So he did. He did really well.
So thanks a lot, everyone, and see you tomorrow with Damien from Reedin Kites. Goodbye.
See you later.